a junior at Yarmouth High School. Abdi was born in Somalia in 1985. Forced to flee from Mogadishu after Al-Shabaab, a radical Islamist group, rose to power in 2006, he won entrance to the United States in the annual Green Card lottery and settled in Yarmouth, Maine. His story has been told internationally, most notably by the BBC and This American Life. He is now a published author living in Maine. His book, Call Me American, was published this past June. Please welcome Abdi.
Hello. So, he said I was born in 1885, but the key word in my book is probably, right? Because I don't know when I was born. I'm just kidding. but that's the key word, probably. So unfortunately, yes. And Patrick has mentioned something very important, which is changing fear into hope. My story actually begins with fear taking over hope. I was born probably in 1985 under a neem tree. My dad was doing great. He was a basketball player and he got jewelry, gifts, and so many good things for my mother. So we were sort of living a pretty decent life until 1991. The war begins and Somalia loses everything. A sense of community was replaced by fear. Unity, hope, and love had never been part of my life. So even though I lived in the same city that Mogadishu, which is a beautiful place, that I would belong to, that I would be a participant, I felt like I had been a guest just because of the tribe that I belonged to. And these warlords and militias that came all over the place stole everything. My dad's gifts to my mother had been stolen and looted by these militias. And many times I came face to face with them, looking at them in the eyes. And all I saw was nothing but fear. I was scared, and that was the order of the day growing up in Somalia. But because hope never existed in Somalia, the New York Times and Washington Post and other big newspapers had actually taken the issue worldwide until American troops got involved and the United Nations arrived with thousands of troops on the ground. And the name of the mission that actually they came for at the time in Somalia was called Restoration of Hope. And the president who came up with this was George Washington, the father, who died 3 days ago. So that had a special relationship to me. And that's, as you can see here, that could have been me. So that's the job. The troops come, and they're coming to restore hope by not only fighting the militias on the streets, but by also bringing food to us. And there were so many distribution centers. And when that came, unfortunately, my sister died a week or two ago because the food came too late. But because of this, I was able to survive, I was able to eat, and I was able to drink. And my mom was able to walk again because she could not walk. She's been walking for miles and miles, taking care of us. So it's been a really, really tough time where I sort of grew up knowing what to do and knowing what not to do. But knowing what not to do was more than knowing what to do. So I had to pretend like I belonged to the tribe of every gang man that comes face to face with me by pretending the dialect and the accent that they spoke. So what was missing here in Somalia was hope. It never existed. The US troops pulled out because they got into a war with the militias, and they made a movie out of this called Black Hawk Down. And it's been a tough one, because 18 US soldiers were killed on the streets of Mogadishu. And that is when the US decided, well, why do we need to try to bring hope in this country where they are not even interested in the hope itself? Well, one thing that was missing out of the Somali war was the sense of the desire of the basic human fundamentals, right? So I started going to a movie theater as a motivation to try to find hope, and this is what I saw. I went and I seen a lot of Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, a lot of Van Damme's, a lot of Bruce Willis, but the Terminators were actually specifically important to me because I picked up English. That's how I learned English. We're talking about a country that had lost everything. There was no school, there was no structure, no hospital, no clinic. But this is how I found my sense of hope. I'm sitting in the movie theater, I'm watching this, watching Arnold Schwarzenegger having breakfast with his daughter somewhere outside of a restaurant. Give me hope. And I realized that there is a world out there beyond Somalia. And when I came back home, I started arguing with my mother, and everything that I said, she thought that I was out of my mind. I told her, Mom, there are kids out there that have a roof over their heads, food on the table, and they have clothes on their bags, and they're really enjoying, they're having fun. And my mom would say, you know what, that's not how you get motivation. You need to go to the madrasa. And madrasa is this place. And this is what my mother's raised home, and actually entirely all Somali mothers. So what this means is this is the only type of school that exists in Somalia. What these kids are doing, this could have been me. I wish they took a picture of me. I would look like this. So what this means is we use it on the dirt floor, and there's a piece of wood that you have, and as you can see, there's an Arabic script, and that's the Quran. There is 114 chapters of the Quran, 6,666 verses of the Quran. So we were all supposed to memorize that one by one, verse by verse. And that's what I did, because it was not negotiable, it was mandatory. So while I was doing this, I was also going to the movie theater. But at some point, the two things don't go together. Because the madrasa teacher is considered as a parent, so in this case, when he found me going to the movie, he would drag me out of the movie, bring me here, and sit me here for days as a punishment. And then I realized that my motivation, my hope, had been taken away from me. But I'll be honest with you, even though I'm very proudful of the things that I learned from here, but I did not like it. I thought it was not giving me peace of mind. It wasn't making me relax. Whereas the movies, it was just, I would see other things that are very interesting every time. I would pick up some curse words, come home, and tattoo them on the walls, and my mother wouldn't like it, and I thought that was fun. I really enjoyed it. However, things get really bad by 2006. It gets bad because here's one thing. It was like winning a lottery to grow up from a child into an adult or an adolescent. It was like a lottery. Not many people could do that. But I was able to go through all of this, and I turned 20. But when I turned 20, Somalia's face of war had changed from a warlord era into this. Radical Islamists. America invades Iraq and Afghanistan. America is bombing the Middle East. And then we have a bunch of thousands of Islamists that come run over Somalia. So what did they do? They bombed the movie theater. And they arrested the woman who was running the movie theater. So that means no movies at all. Music, songs, dance, anything that's related to the Western world had been banned. And what happened to me ever since was I went into hiding, trying to get away from recruitment, so that they don't force me into their army, which actually was a direct death. You join them and they take you out to the war, and you're done. That's it. I mean, the main reason to join them was just that. But I didn't want that. I just needed life. So I escaped. For those of you who are This American Life piece of my story called Abdi and Gold Ticket, I escaped. I got out of the war in Somalia and came to Kenya as a refugee. And still, refugee life hadn't been really good because they wouldn't even accept to write down my made-up birthday, which was June 20th, World Refugee Day. They ignored it, and they put down January 1st, so my refugee papers still have January 1st. This family, that's Sharon McDonald, she lives in Yarmouth. Is she here today? Okay, I didn't see her. So Sharon, who lives on this Sligo Road in Yarmouth, Maine, sort of heard my story while she was fixing her breakfast in the morning. on NPR because I became a journalist, a war journalist. I started telling my stories, recording audio diaries. From English, I learned from movies. Someone who has never been to school, and I was able to learn something out of the war. So for those of us who live in wars, we have the capacity, we have the strength and the guts to learn things, and that's what I did. The greatest accomplishment I've reached so far was learning English from movies and I'd never go to school. When she heard my story, she decided to say, you know what, I've been in Afghanistan, I saw what a war looks like, and I worked with CDC and all of these people, but I cannot let this young man die. I cannot let this young man live homelessness. So she was trying to give me hope. She contacted me and she's been supporting me as a refugee in Kenya along with my brother, and eventually I win the diversity visa lottery. For those of you who know, the diversity visa lottery is something that the US has been talking about lately, specifically the White House that we have today. They've been trying to stop it. They stop it because there's this one man in New York who uses his truck to run over pedestrians, and now they look at his case, and now he has arrived to the United States as a diversity lottery winner. Just he won this lottery out of 15 million people the same way that I did. But because he did that, they're trying to stop it right now. To me, that was the hope. That's what turned my whole world into the perfect world that I wanted to live. Because as a refugee in Kenya, hope never existed. As a civil war kid in Somalia, hope never existed. Hiding from recruitment from Islamists, hope never existed. It was not part of my world. I've struggled. I did everything. I motivated myself from watching movies to connecting with the world, to doing everything else. But hope never existed until that day. I decided to go to a soccer coffee and apply for the lottery visa with 15 million people all over the world. And the chances of winning are 1 in 500 people. But because of determination, I was able, well, of course it was luck. I was picked, I was selected, but then it took me about a year to go through the process. And finally, I come to a place that scared me. This place is called Yarmouth, Maine. Sharon picked me up from Boston one evening actually. So we were driving about 10 at night on 95. So imagine for those of us who know America from movies, I was expecting skyscrapers. I was expecting people walking up and down. I had no idea that a freeway was a pedestrian free, like you cannot walk on a highway. That was not part of me. So after a few basic lessons like buckle up, you need to put on the seatbelt and all of that, we stopped by the gas station and picked up some food. I realized that I was going on a dark place, like a place that didn't look like America, a place that sort of looked like the Walking Dead movies. Sligo Road doesn't have a sidewalk, so I ended up in Sligo Road. Sharon has a beautiful property. She has a horse. She has all of these wonderful things. I woke up the next morning, and after a few basic lessons again on how to use the microwave, I was introduced to things in the refrigerator. And one thing that I still remember I was told was like, don't eat the cat food. Well, she said that because I picked up the can and I was looking at it. I thought it was fish. I'm not embarrassed. It was good to know all of that. And so, yeah, I mean, my hope, my dream came true. And it was all just coming to America. And I put up a sign outside the front yard saying like, young man, energetic from Africa, and I just need a job. That's what I was looking for. I've been trying to find a job for a while, and thanks to Christine, who's here today, found me my first job, which was installation job, putting those itchy stuff into houses. I never expected that I would be a radio star, as you can see here. I never expected that I would be a star or a celebrity in the US, but somehow, because of my determination, I knew I was going somewhere. This was the most touching radio podcast that had been aired in This American Life, and it's called Abdi and the Ticket. And when this was aired, I remember talking to Ira Glass on the phone, and so many people think that he's a celebrity, but I had no idea who he was, until he said, Abdi, we need to put together your story, And I said, well, I'm too busy. I'm doing work. I wake up early in the morning and get home in the evening. So they said, well, we're going to send someone. Do you have a place that this person can stay? I said, yes, we do. And then this person comes up with a microphone in my face all the time. And I was able to, tell the story. So people reached out to me. I'm talking about thousands of people who actually got me connected on Twitter and Facebook. They said, we have never heard anything so touching like this. What did they hear? They heard my story, just from Kenya. Well, my brother and I, as refugees, were hiding ourselves, protecting ourselves from harassment, from being dragged downstairs by the Kenyan police. And here's the problem. No one ever wants to be refugee. People think that we choose to be refugee. We do not. I never called myself a refugee. Fortunately, that's a problem. There's a war in your country, you have to get out and get into another country, and then we give ourselves up to the refugee agencies, and they take down our names and give us a paperwork that says I'm a refugee. But my brother and I looked at each other in the eyes and we said, we're human beings. We never just to be refugees. But that was unfortunately our status. But in Kenya, which is a developing country, thousands of their own young don't have jobs, but they find refugees to be an overload, sort of parasite on the nation. So they decided to sort of hunt us down one by one, harass us, and take money from us. How do you take money from a refugee when you don't even let them find jobs? But thanks to Sharon and the team, Abdi, that sent us a few $100s so that we could bail ourselves up whenever we got caught. So I've been handcuffed many times as a refugee in Kenya. So that's what I talked about. And I waited the lottery. And eventually come to the United States. Well, that was an earlier thing. So here's my lottery. Somalia doesn't have a legal document. We don't have passports. We don't have birth certificates or anything else. So that's the American visa that they put on a piece of paper. That's how it works. Like if you want to get to France, you use your passport, and that's how they put the visas on your document. But in my world, look at this. That's my first dinner in America. So I don't know if you can see that smile. It's just, here's the interesting thing. These are the family that I came from, that live in Yemen. But this is my first ever happy dinner, I would say, because I don't remember a single day growing up in Somalia and being in Kenya for 5 years as a refugee. There was no single day that I sat down for dinner that I was not looking on my sides, being scared, being freaked out, fearful. But this one, was I expecting the cops to come get me? Was I expecting militias and tags to jump up that fence and sort of come get me? So the sense of hope and peace that I found was incredible. Look at us. We're just having a nice, quiet conversation, a nice, quiet dinner. And here's me sitting outside. And you can imagine, I was full of energy. I just wanted to do so many things. But I couldn't believe that I was free and hopeful. And that I made my dream come true. But I had a bright future ahead of me, including writing my own book. Well, this is the road where I was talking about earlier. So you can imagine that. Here's my book. Code American is the book that I put together out of my experience. And the title basically comes from when I was 10 and seeing these Arnold Schwarzenegger movies and American Marines arriving in Mogadishu. I asked my friends to call me American. And when they asked me why, and I said, because I think I'm one of them. And from there, I picked up so many English. But in this book, I talk about, in details, growing up as a kid in Somalia with no hopes, no dreams, full of pessimism, and the clash of interests, like my mother's way of direction for me to go and myself trying to go the other way. And eventually, I win, and my mom loses. I say this because I'm the one who sends money now. And I tell her, Mom, what was your greatest fear that could happen when I moved to the U.S.? And she said, I thought they would make you Christian. And I said,
I rarely meet an American who claims to be Christian. And I realize there's a huge misconception and misunderstanding out there in the world. Whereas the way America sees Somalia is through two movies, like Abdi and Captain Phillips. And if you see these two movies, you will realize that Somalia is full of militias and gangsters and pirates. But then the story that's missing that many people can't see is the basic human desire for survival, which is my story. So I came here to tell that side of the story, to sort of go beyond what Hollywood has sort of depicted about Somalia. And then to my mother, I tell her every day, I'm like, well, I think the Americans are even more interested in my culture than I'm interested in their culture. And I do not have a single friend who tells me, oh, I'm going to the jar, so I cannot come today. I actually don't. So it's an interesting thing. And I told her back, and I said, you know, with all this misconception of America's invasion in the Middle East, it's about introducing Christianity. I mean, I have a second thought about that. I'm not quite sure what political-wise it is. But honestly, there's humanity here. There are people. And when I need to do something, I have the platform, and I have the support. Imagine writing this book in Somalia. That would have been a quick death, because I talk about the things that happened, the tribal conflicts, the Islamist militias that invaded Somalia, the child married. My sister was married at the age of 14, against her will. I talk about women's circumcision, and these are the things that seem taboo, and you could have gotten killed. But America gave me the platform, and I was in Yarmouth, and it was snowing, 2016, by the fire, with a hot tea, when I was sitting down to write this book. And I'm really very thankful and very hopeful to be here. Thank you.